Um, our special guest for today will be logging in shortly, so we will be patient as she gets here. So hey y'all, my name is Kelsey Niet, and welcome to our second installment of Conversations with Kelsey for Our Common Good. We here at For Our Common Good are committed to boosting the voices of local nonprofits. For Our Common Good believes in making change through spotlighting community-based nonprofits across the country and providing our support by spreading awareness of different issues. Before we get into our conversation for today, I would like to offer a warning for the heavy topics that we will be getting into. Because this live is focused on the work of the Center for Suicide Awareness, we will be discussing topics including suicide awareness and prevention, as well as mental health. I ask that everyone who is here and who is watching at any point, that you prioritize your mental health and well-being. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please watch and follow along with care. All right, so getting into today, our focus is mental health and suicide awareness. Specifically, we're looking at the Center for Suicide Awareness. The CSA has assisted in the education of 35,000 people, as well as having conducted 1,600 suicide prevention trainings, all in pursuit of breaking barriers and ending mental health stigma. Today we would like to welcome Barb Bigalke. I'm very sorry if I mispronounced that. Please correct me at any point if I do so. Founder and Executive Director of Center for Suicide Awareness, which is a Wisconsin-based nonprofit whose mission is to raise awareness and assist in the prevention of suicide by providing support, education, training, and intervention. So now we will wait another moment. I do believe that our special guest has arrived, so just if you will give me one moment to add you to this call. All right. Okay. I'm very sorry this is taking an extra second. So our special guest from the Center for Suicide Awareness, it is not letting me add you to the live, so we will try giving it another moment. If you wouldn't mind trying jumping out of the live and then coming right back in, I think that might fix the issue, but I am not sure. So we will give that another minute. So a shout out to our guest, another guest who has joined us today. Hello, Leanne Winfield. It's so nice to see you here today. All right, let's see if. Okay. All right, we will give that another second. All right.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. Hi, Barb. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Good. Is it hot where you are? It is like super hot here in Wisconsin.
Absolutely. I'm down in Texas, so it is unbelievably hot here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We're not going to complain then.
No, it's totally understandable. This climate change is no joke. All right.
Exactly. It is no joke. It's real.
All right.
We'll
But you
move
know
on
what? We're not here to
and
talk
you'll
about
love it.
climate change. We're here to talk about mental health today, right?
Absolutely. I love it. I love it.
All right. So tell us, what is the Center for Suicide Awareness? What do y'all do?
So the Center for Suicide Awareness, we're a 501c3, so we're a nonprofit. And we pride ourselves on we are feet on the ground, working and breaking that stigma against mental health, bringing awareness to it's not, it takes strength to ask for help. It's not a weakness. And really just talking about having open, safe conversations about what suicide prevention really is.
All right. That is such a positive mission statement, and to be able to have that purpose, I know that that impacts a lot of people. To be able to have that opportunity to see such the opportunity, I guess, just to be able to have that resource. So I know that the service that you provide in being able to have these trainings as well as preventative and I'm forgetting what the word is, uh, but services that essentially just assist people with those stigmas and breaking those down. I know that that's so helpful for some people. And in the over 20 years that you personally have been providing support to individuals who are struggling with mental health as well as suicidal thoughts, you've worked with the victims crisis response, you've worked with high school students to provide support to these students, you've acted as a group facilitator, and you've created events within your community to raise awareness, all before going off to start your own nonprofit in 2009. So, what was your turning point in all of this? What led you to the decision to start the Center for Suicide Awareness?
Sometimes you have to listen to like this little voice inside you that say, you can do more, you can do more. And you have those moments that you're like, it's a little scary and it might be risky. And what are people going to think? But at the end of the day, you have to really listen to your own voice the loudest and say, we can do better. And let's have a safe conversation. Let's make a safe place where people really can have that ability to say, I'm struggling, I need help. And that is a real honor when somebody walks through our doors and says, I need help, because they're showing vulnerability. And that's an honor, and we respect that immensely.
And especially with mental health, something that you said was being able to listen to yourself. I know that for those who are struggling with mental health, being able to have that voice that's saying like something is wrong, it's important to show yourself that kindness and listening to whatever is happening and saying that you do need to be vulnerable, you need to show that side of yourself and go and seek help. And so in the idea of that, the services that you have helped to provide people, you were awarded the Wisconsin Heroes Award in 2018 for your work as an advocate for someone who is out speaking for mental health as well as suicide prevention and awareness. So as someone who is going out every day and actively doing this good to support your state, how does it feel to know that you've not only caught people's attention, but that you're being appreciated for your efforts in wanting to help others? And in that, how has the opportunity to utilize a new platform through that impacted the work of the Center for Suicide Awareness?
I think awards are nice, and I'm very honored, like awards that the center has given. And I always say it's not me getting the award, it's a team effort, all the people that are part of the center. But some of the best rewards and awards that I get are those tiny little thank you notes that somebody says, hey, today I decided to stay alive, or today I went to my teacher, my parent, my counselor, and said, I need help. Those are the kind of things that I think those are my awards. Matter of fact, I had a thank you card that I just got, and I was like, these are like the little awards of saying, you know what, somebody texted our text line, somebody walked across our threshold, someone spoke up and said, you know what, I want help. And those are the biggest awards that I think I can have.
Yeah, that's such a great and genuine answer, to be able to know that you're out there helping people and you truly care about each individual, that you're able to have that service to be able to help them and to serve them. So I know that that's really important to a lot of people. So thank you for that, just in that genuine answer. In being able to help people, wanting to have this reality of where people are able to thank you for your service and all of the things you've done, how are you able to take the ambition, the idea of Center for Suicide Awareness before it was a thing? How are you able to take that idea and make it this reality?
It's funny. I think, sometimes people are like, okay, like, did you have like this strategic plan? And did you like ask all these consultants? The Center for Suicide Awareness really grew by literally having people around a kitchen table and having coffee and muffins and literally saying, what do you think? What barriers do people have? What what makes people not want to come to a counselor? What makes people not shy away from help? And that kind of stuff. So I think that's what came about in a kitchen table. And I think people always go, come on, that didn't really happen. I'm like, yeah, it really did happen. It was literally having real, authentic talks about what do people need? What do people need? What do real people need? And it was like, heck, I Googled how to make a nonprofit. I was like, okay, I guess you got this paperwork. I guess you got to do this. But you know what? That's what you have. You have to take your risks sometimes in life and not listen to all the other people. Because you know as well as I do, there's going to be many people that are like, you shouldn't do that. You're not credible. Who do you think you are? So forth and so forth, right? But you have to listen to your own voice and say, no, let's make this work. And when we opened it, we've never looked back. We've never looked back and said it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. I do want to pause for a second because I am having difficulty hearing you. Could you try saying something for me real fast?
Oops, we lost your hearing. We lost your voice.
Well, maybe it might just be my Wi-Fi. I am having a little bit of trouble hearing you, so if you wouldn't mind speaking up just a little bit. Can you all hear me?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, we're having a hard time hearing you too.
Let me. I think I'm doing all right. I can hear you a little bit better now.
Okay, we turned up as far as we can go on our mic, on our end.
Okay, I did the same. I think we should be good now. All right. Sorry about that.
No problem. That's called real life.
Absolutely. Welcome to the modern age. So that's such a great answer to be able to know that, like listening to yourself is the most important part. Something that in the past few weeks, being able to talk with other executive directors of nonprofits, the most common thing that I've been hearing is that there's really no plan. There's no way to plan for this, no way to plan for this vision. And so to know that you share in that answer is so amazing, just to kind of get that survey of like all of these different people who are just like, we didn't know what we were doing. We just had this calling and we went for it. And you did it. You succeeded. So that's really important to remember too.
That is so true. And that is like the real answer. It's not like you had this perfect little plan because, let's face it, you have this perfect little plan and some snap comes into it. And then you have to readjust your sails. So yeah, it was something in your gut, something in your heart, something in your soul said, you need to do this. Do it.
Absolutely. And just being able to get out there is so important, and to create change at that, to be able to go out and create change actively. So in that, through Center for Suicide Awareness, is there anything that you hope to realistically change on a social or political level through your work?
I think taking the shame out of mental health. It hurts when I hear people say, well, I'm too embarrassed to ask for help. Or what are people going to think of me? Or I must not be able to cope in life because everybody else seems to handle things. And so I think that has to really, we got to get to a platform where we can have these open conversations without judgment, without putting people down. We have never walked in another person's shoes. We simply haven't. And so for somebody to come across and say, well, gee, why can't you handle this? I handled it. That's not for us to say. That's not for us to say. So if anything, and it's funny because a lot of people were like, maybe you shouldn't call yourself Center for Suicide Awareness because the word suicide had stigma. It's like, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to break. So why would we not have suicide in our name? So really just taking some of that shame and blame out of the mental health and suicide prevention world.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know that even whenever I was preparing to sit down with you and to have this conversation, I struggled with the way to word things and to have this conversation because it's not normalized to talk about mental health. It's not normalized to talk about suicide, suicidal thoughts, and wanting to actively even prevent that. That's not normalized to say that we don't want people in our lives, in our communities, in our schools. We don't want them feeling that they are trapped. We don't want them feeling like there is a way out. And so I think that that's just so interesting that at where we are as a society, we're not able to openly talk about those things. And so I applaud you in your mission and being able to go out and wanting to break these barriers, because that takes a lot of guts just as much as it takes to say that, someone is struggling with mental health. And so that's really important, and especially in the work that you're doing.
Well, I think if somebody's stopped from saying, I'm struggling, simply because society is saying you shouldn't be, we got to take a real look and do a check ourselves and saying, why? If somebody walked into our office with a broken arm, we would go, oh my gosh, let me help you with the door. Don't carry something, right? But because mental health is inside, we don't see that. And so we don't see where somebody is saying, wow, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Or today is really a hard day. We concentrate a lot on like physical health, right? We have lots of great commercials of eat this, watch your vegetables, watch your carb intake, and so forth. And when we see somebody lifting weights, we applaud them, right? We're like, yeah, look at him. He's at the gym working out. But you talk to somebody that has depression, and they get out of bed, get dressed, take a shower, brush their teeth. That's lifting weights. But we don't see that. We don't see that that person is lifting those weights and saying, today is a day that's really hard and I'm struggling. And each one of these tasks that another person might say is so simple, and what's wrong with you, they're lifting their weights.
Absolutely. I think it's so interesting that you bring up the analogy of the broken arm, because that is so important to just look at that and say something like, you wouldn't say to someone who has a physical ailment, like, go and do this thing that it is impossible for you to do, but yet we take so much ease as a society in looking at someone who is struggling with their mental health and saying that, you're not doing the right things, you're being selfish. And that was even something we've seen in the last few days with Simone Biles, who withdrew from certain competitions within the Olympics because of mental health. And so to be able to see this figure, this athletic figure who is one of the, if not the greatest gymnast of all time, saying that I need help and prioritizing her mental health and well-being. And so seeing that this stigma is so deeply rooted in our society that we can't appreciate that someone is setting boundaries. How would you say that Center for Suicide Awareness is attempting to break those stigmas and barriers that are associated with them?
And I love that you brought that up about you're this amazing athlete, right? But everybody's criticizing her for what? Being human. She's not a machine. She's human. And she has the self-care and self-love for herself that says, I need help with something. And for us not to applaud that and say, kudos, you should be taking care of yourself. And like you said, people are saying, oh, you're selfish. And that's, oh my gosh, we have got to get away from taking care of our mental health and selfishness. That is nothing but the opposite. And so when we take those type of challenges, I call them, head on, we do things like, really, do you really think like going to a spa day is going to erase 10 years of trauma? Do you really think that saying I need help is weakness? It takes a lot of courage, because you're saying to somebody, I believe you will understand me without judgment. That's huge strength. That is not being weak or selfish or any of the other things that people get bashed for. And so we talk a lot about being stigma breakers. We talk very openly about struggles. We talk very openly about suicide prevention. We talk very open about you'd have no idea what your words could mean to somebody. And we really take that you have an impact. Your words, your actions impact somebody. What if that person literally was at their end? They had had enough and life was really heavy. You have no idea what those words mean to them. It's the same. You don't know what those positive words of I believe in you, you're enough, you're worthy, you got this, we can do this together, can absolutely empower somebody.
Absolutely. And just being someone who listens, being someone who is there to provide that support, even if you're not saying anything at all, if you're just asking, do you want me to give you advice? Do you want me to support you in whatever way? Just being present for someone who has said that I am struggling, that is, and honestly, in my opinion, that is one of the best ways that we can be there for each other, for our fellow humans. And that is something that even through your initiative, Hopeline, that you attempted to do in 2014, you started this initiative for people to be able to text and communicate with trained crisis counselors for when they need someone to be there for them. So I do have to ask, why did you have this be a texting hotline rather than the traditional calling hotline? Was there any specific reason that you wanted that to be the route of communication?
Yeah, Hopeline was an interesting initiative. It really involved on us going, what's happening prior to a suicide? And so we knew that suicide was the second leading cause of death amongst our youth, which right there, people should be standing up and going, what? Those are our youth. Those are our next generation. Those are our voices, our leaders. And yet suicide's the second leading cause of death. And so we really started to look at a young person that died by suicide. What were they doing prior? You know, they were texting. They were texting, but they were texting their friends. You know, and they were saying this breakup hurt. Or you know what? I got kicked off the football team. Or guess what? Oh, they humiliated me on social media. But they were texting their friends. And their friends aren't trained to say, this is serious. Like, this is serious and you need help. They were saying, hey, you know what? Guess what? My mom needs me to come down for supper. Or I got to study for a geography test. And they weren't in sync with this person who's really saying, I need help. And I'm thinking of killing myself. And so literally I went cold calling and found other states that had text lines and literally like, hi, this is Barb from Wisconsin. Like, how did you start a text line and what did you do and everything? I met amazing people that I've never met across the United States that really helped guide the process. And so when we decided to do it, I wrote a manual on how to respond to the text people. We knew that we only had a little bit of time after school that we thought we could, manage. I trained 9 responders, and where we were located was in this old abandoned school building that turned into offices, but the heat ended at 4 o'clock. So we're in Wisconsin, like we pretty much heat all the time. And so here these responders were waiting for people to text, like with mittens on, and we had space heaters, and we had to unplug a space heater if we wanted to heat a cup of coffee or have popcorn. And I think about those days, I'm like, oh my gosh, like talk about dedication. But we realized that young people text. That is their mode of communication. And so why wouldn't we go to them instead of them having to adapt to us? And so our biggest challenge was funding, because people were like, what are you doing? And didn't really believe in it. You're not going to be able to hear them, so you're not going to know what they're feeling. You're not going to know what their abbreviations are and everything. And that wasn't the case. So we ended up having a golf outing and a meat raffle to get the funding, literally. And we did it. And we purchased the software and sat and waited. And sure enough, little by little, those texts came in. And I think back to those days of unplugging a space heater and responding to people and saying, hey, you know what? We're here for you. We're going to figure this out together. And plus, it also took down the barrier of somebody that's hard of hearing. They didn't need any special equipment because texting is, all done via your phone.
Yeah,
That's how the plan started.
That's an amazing startup story, and thank you so much for sharing that. Something that you brought up was adaptability and being able to adapt to the way that modern generations are communicating through text, which is so important. I know for a lot of kids who struggle with anxiety, it might be hard for them to call. It might be hard for them to work up the courage to say that I'm struggling, but I'm going to say that with my own voice rather than with my words. I know that even personally, I can't call my dentist without freaking out for 10 minutes before. So I completely understand that. And I'm honestly appreciative for every single kid out there who is not able to make that phone call to say that even through text. Text is the easiest way to do it for teens.
It
And
is.
just because,
And
like,
you still get emotion. And a lot of people will say to me, Barb, I can tell more in text than if I would have been talking. It's hard to express feelings. It's hard to express emotions. I don't care what age you are. It's hard. It's not natural to walk around and say, well, today I'm feeling anxious due to. That's not how we speak in this society. I would love if we did, but so texting, I can sit and tell you the whole story. I can tell you what hurt. I can tell you how if somebody posted something on social media that was so wrong and really hurt me, I can tell the whole story. And that story is so important to be heard.
and being able to have that voice, that extra moment of just saying that here's the problem, laying it all out, like you said, and being able to, even through text, you could send pictures, you could say, this is specifically what triggered me today. This is what brought me to where I am today, and this is what made me feel the way that I feel. It's just so much easier to be able to have the entire story laid out right there. But in the same vein with adaptability, something that I did want to ask you about was the pandemic, because obviously the pandemic is a situation that we're all having to adapt to, we're all having to adapt with. But that is also something that brought a lot of mental health struggles for individuals who are feeling isolated. So tell us, what has Center for Suicide Awareness taken steps wise or through new initiatives to specifically support people who have felt isolated during these times?
Right? No one ever saw that this pandemic was going to come down, right? Did we ever think that in 2020 we were all going to be put into our houses? No one had a manual on how to handle that. And so I think one of the beauties was that the tax line was always virtual. And so it never missed even an hour through the pandemic. But we saw how people changed. They would text in, hey, I'm having a bad day because, my teacher flunked me for something, or, what, someone told me a rumor about somebody. But we started to see the word fear come in of the unknown. No one knew, right? I think in March, everybody was like, okay, well, maybe we'll be here for a month, and then months and months and a year. And fear comes in, and then we feel like, I don't have any control. And we don't feel like we have control, then even more fear sets in. And so we really promoted the hope line in every aspect. We did a lot of initiatives with our frontline people, saying, hey, you have to take care of yourself. You're a nurse, you're a doctor, you're a police officer, you're a firefighter, you're out in the front line, you're stocking groceries. You got to make sure you're taking care of yourself as you're going through this pandemic. And we have a whole division on video gaming, and really got out into the video gaming world and said, it's a connection. We're not meant to be isolated. We're human beings. We like our connections and our sense of belonging. And so we really were out in the Discord world and saying, hey, come and chat with us while we're online. Let's talk about those struggles. How are you handling that you might be in with, a family that maybe isn't healthy? And how are you handling that? And let's talk about it openly in a safe area. So we really talked very openly on a lot of different platforms so that people had a variety of ways to get help.
Yeah, the virtual format of things like Hopeline, I know have been such blessings to people who just have not been able to go out and experience things, to be able to not feel as isolated, to not feel alone. And especially with things like Hopeline, in being able to provide that extra support to some people who do feel extra isolated right now. I know that a lot of them are very thankful for that. And so that's a huge help in mental health, right? So, but additionally, like you said, across all platforms, being able to spread the word, being able to normalize things through social media, especially, that is such a tool to be able to use these days. And something that actually your organization has shared on social media that caught my interest was this quote: "Your hardest times often lead to the greatest moments of your life. Keep the faith; it will all be worth it in the end." I think that's just such an inspiring quote, and being able to hold that close to your heart and saying that things will always get better. So when someone is at their lowest, how do you convince them to move forward, to keep that faith and show themselves any type of grace? And why, in your opinion, is it important for people struggling with their mental health to show themselves that grace?
The word grace, you'll see a lot throughout us. And if you would ask any of our team, they're like, yep, that's Barb's favorite word, grace. And the reason why is we don't give ourselves enough forgiveness and grace. We're so hard on ourselves. Like we're supposed to be these perfect people and perfect human beings. And we're not. We're not machines. And so I always say, you make a mistake, okay, own it, but give yourself grace. You made a mistake. You didn't get that A. Well, you know what? A C is average, and there's nothing wrong with average. Give yourself grace. You had a breakup. Well, take a lesson away, work on some self-reflection, and give yourself grace. I think sometimes when we get in our hardest moments, we just don't see any light. And then we always are constantly looking at like society to give us validation that we're good enough and credible. We got to look at ourselves and say, dang it, we are good enough. We are worthy. We are lovable. And that's what grace really is saying, you know what? I'm not going to measure up to other people's, measuring sticks that I'm supposed to be so tall, so thin, so perfect, and so forth. I am going to measure up that I'm trying to do the best day I can, and I'm going to give myself grace about it.
Absolutely. And something that you said that I thought was really important, well, all of what you just said was very important, but something that specifically caught my interest was that people compare themselves and that people hold themselves to these other standards. But it's important to remember that also in that what works for other people won't work for us in our own lives. So the way that we perceive things, the way that we go about our lives, there are just certain things that, for one person will not work for the next. So keeping that in mind, moving into the topic of coping mechanisms, because I know that that's something that your organization works to support and to kind of develop these different coping mechanisms. So, is there anything in particular in the span of coping mechanisms or therapy techniques that the Center for Suicide Awareness pushes for or hopes to make more common in the ultimate goal of breaking stigma?
Yeah, and I think people think like coping mechanisms. It's like, well, I went to the gym. That's great. But you have to have a balance. If I have 5 stressors, I want to have 7 coping mechanisms. And coping mechanisms are not one size fits all. I have a friend that loves yoga. I do not like yoga. So it's not my coping mechanism. If anything, it probably makes me more angry, right? So always have something that fits you. If it's walking in nature, go do it. If it's, having your ice cream treat, it's like, okay, go do it. If that is going to help you have that balance of life is stressful and how do I cope with it, you know, do it. Journal, get it out of your system. No one's going to grade it with a red pen and say, oh, that's not grammatically correct. Get those thoughts, get those feelings, good, bad, and ugly, out on a piece of paper or out on a canvas and paint it. Listen to music. Um, you know, go out in nature. Cuddle your pets. Take a rest. Turn off every single possible social media and say, you know what? I'm going to just love this silence. Laugh. Find humor in life. And just really just give yourself a lot of, hey, I'm doing the best I can. And, you know, if anything, I would say to somebody asked me this the other day. They're like, what would you tell a younger self of your version? And say, don't take life so seriously. You're going to be just fine. Find your peeps that are going to support you and you hang on to them. And the toxic people, you just keep out there and say, nah, you're not my crowd. And love yourself first. And then realize how much you are lovable.
Absolutely, being able to show that grace, especially that grace, showing yourself that you are worthy, and not only that you are worthy, but that you know that you are worthy, and that you're able to show that through whatever you use as a coping mechanism and whatever you use to be able to take that edge off of whatever your mental health is doing right now, however you're struggling. I have to agree with you. Yoga is definitely not something that I would do as a coping mechanism. It just does not work for me. So I agree with you on that. Um, and just taking that moment to say that, being able to go out and take that next step for yourself is so important. Um, But also something that you brought up was being able to have a message that you would give to your younger self. I also think that that's a really important question. What would you say to your younger self if you had the opportunity? But I think that something that we can use to put that forward is to not just say that to what would we say to our younger selves, but what would we say to someone who is in our position now, who in 2021, who is suffering in a way that maybe we have felt in the past or we felt similarly to in the past. So my next question to you is, um, with mental health being a problem that, especially the stigmatization of it, being a problem that this modern generation, the next generation will be inheriting. How are you taking steps to get my generation involved in ending the mental health stigma?
We love our young people because you are breaking so much of the stigma by talking openly about mental health. So we pride ourselves. We have a lot of interns from college. A couple of years ago, we brought in a whole group of college kids from Michigan to work with the high school students. And it was amazing because it was like, you know what? You're teaching them, like, hey, this is what college is really like. Nope, it's not all fun and games. You got to study and you got to get through things and you got to show up at class. And guess what? You might have a roommate that you don't like, but you have to get along with. And it was just amazing to see, like, why can't we just sort of mentor each age, learn from each other? People are like, oh, well, young people should learn from, the other generations. Well, why can't we go both ways? Why can't we really learn from every generation? And so we bring in a lot of interns. We have a lot of activities like walks and stuff that it's our young people. It's our young people out there, saying, hey, I have an anxious day. Hey, I have depression, but not having that be their definition and their identity. It's like me saying I have brown eyes. Well, that doesn't define me. I have tons of other qualities. And so when people come up and they're like, well, I have depression, it's like, that doesn't define you. That's just part of who you are that makes you up the beautiful person you are. And so we do a lot. We do a lot of school activities between talking and activities and fun activities. Mental health doesn't have to be like the doom and gloom and darkness that people think. It's sad when I hear people say, "Well, the kid that's like has his hoodie over his head and is in the corner, that's mental health." I'm like, no, look around. It could be that beautiful person that's laughing all the time, hiding their pain inside. Don't generalize it. And so we can make fun. We make challenges of like, hey, give us 5 different things that help you with your mental health. And it's great to hear all the different varieties of things. Or what would you say to somebody if your friend came up to you and said, I'm thinking of killing yourself? What would you say? We have those open conversations because we never want to feel like somebody's struggling alone. You're not. There are people that care. I think we get so caught up in that we have such a cruel, bad world. I always say, yeah, sure, we have some cruel, but we also have a lot of kind and great and compassionate people. So find them. Let them be your inner circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to just put that out there, to put everything out there, but also keep in mind that you aren't your afflictions, you aren't the things that you're struggling with. Something that for our common good, I got the opportunity to do recently was to attend the Girl Up International Summit, and we actually heard from this speaker who she asked us this really interesting question: and was what would the world miss out on if you weren't here, if you weren't who you are? Um, and I think that that just kind of leads into what you're saying, like what we each have individually to give to the world is our own to give to the world. And if we let ourselves be pulled down by one thing that we think defines us, then we'll miss out on the opportunity to share everything that we are and to share everything that we have to give to others and everything that we have to give to ourselves, and being able to prove to that inner voice who maybe says that we aren't exactly what we need to be or we aren't worthy, that we are worthy and we are enough and always will continue to be enough. And so I think that what you're saying is really important, that we need to be able to show that.
And sometimes I think we minimize that gift. We minimize it like, oh, what do I have to offer? And it's like, oh my gosh, you do. You know, when I started the Center for Suicide Awareness, I had a lot of naysayers. People were like, "What? You can't do this. You're bringing light to something that's very uncomfortable and it's not a situation." I had a lot of people really come down hard on me and like, "No, you can't do this. No, 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 no." And I think about that and I'm like, if I would have listened to them louder than I would have listened to myself saying, "No, you got to do it," a lot of these people would have been missing out. The whole plan would have never been invented. All those kind of things. So that is a really good question. And sometimes when you have those darkest things, you go, I don't know, what do I have to offer? Every single human being has something to offer. And that is enough to keep you here.
Absolutely. And just knowing that there is something unique to us that we have to offer, that no amount of whatever anxiety or any depressing factors in your life, anything that you feel is bringing you down, nothing can detract from that. You know, you still have that gift, you still have that purpose. And initiatives like Hopeline, initiatives like the organization that you're running, those things I know are such a big help to so many people. And so in being able to show them that. And so something that I did want to ask was you brought up internships and how people who maybe feel that their gift is being detracted from can get involved. People who are wanting to give back to something that may have helped them, or people who are just wanting to give to this organization that is so active in helping others. So how can people like myself get involved in this organization as well as just the ability to break down stigma in that societal effort for change? And where would you recommend starting if someone were looking to get into that field?
I love that because people will say, well, I want to give back. And what do I do? And so then you're sort of scratching your head. We have opportunities to be on podcasts. Having somebody tell their story, you know that somebody out there has had something real similar, right? And they're going to hear your story and go, oh my gosh, I am not the only one. And that's going to give them a sense of staying alive. We have a whole list of things on the website. Do a campaign, wear a t-shirt that says, I believe in mental health. Breaking those stigmas don't have to be these like huge events. It could simply be, a campaign where you're at a school and saying, hey, come and tell me about some of the coping skills. Um, Painting a mural on all positivity. We understand positive psychology. Talk about gratitude. Talk about that, you know what, you might have a really bad day, but find some kind of blessing inside that day. There's lots of different ways you can get involved. Even though we're located in Wisconsin, we're across the whole United States. The end of August, we'll be in Seattle doing a video game conference. So we're all over. We come to Texas and San Antonio for a video gaming conference. Having the ability just to have the voice to say, today was a hard day, but you know what? Tomorrow's a new day. You already started a campaign. You already started to break the stigma. If every single person did that, just think how amazing it would be. That another person went, I'm going to break that stigma. I'm going to talk about my anxiety. I'm going to talk about how I got through a breakup. I'm going to talk about when I lost a job and I didn't know what to do. Or, I lost a scholarship for college because I got injured in my last year of high school or college. Those are real stories. By sharing those stories, you're giving the safety and permission for other people to share their stories. That's hope, just passing it along.
Yeah, and being able to give people that opportunity to hear these real life stories and to just simply know that they're not alone. I think that's one of the biggest things is just knowing that you are not alone. You're not alone in being vulnerable and having to take those first steps to say that this is the problem that I'm having and I don't know what to do about it. Please help me. Being able to show that and to show that other people have been where anyone who is struggling is right now is so important. And I think that being able to say that that is just the one thing that can help is just to being able to normalize things
Yeah.
is the one thing that is universal. Like anyone can do that, right?
Yeah. I
So
mean, I look for the vision of somebody that has their anxiety pills sitting down there and people don't say things like, oh, those are crazy pills. Because people don't say that if you're taking insulin for your diabetes or your cholesterol pills or your heart pills. They're saying, oh, make sure you watch your diet, make sure you're taking your pills. But why is there such an unbalance of I'm taking maybe something for anxiety, or I'm taking something for my depression, or I'm seeking counseling? That's bettering yourself. No different than if I was taking my medication for my heart. So that's my vision. And so when people say, what can you do? Break those stigmas. I always say, hey, walk in and say, you know what? Today I'm really having a depressed day, but I want everybody to know it. I'm going to walk through it. I'm going to try to step through it, and I'm going to try to manage it. And you'll see people that will be like, whoa. And then you're going to say, wow, that was so courageous because I just had that a couple of weeks ago. That's getting involved.
Yeah, and just the simplicity of it, I think, is something that a lot of people would be more open to. Just being able to know that in this battle, in this path to wanting to see where we're able to talk about the things that are hurting us, that we're struggling with, that are bothering us, it's so simple because you can just take that one step by saying that, hey, this is what it is, or this is mental health, and this is what it looks like, and this is what coping looks like. And these are all of these different things. And I just think that simplicity is something that so many people will be able to jump on board as soon as they get the word, you know? But moving into more specifically for Center for Suicide Awareness, I know that you said that you had opportunities across the country. So how are people who aren't based in Wisconsin help in more specific ways and more fine-tuned ways to this path of normalization? Do you offer virtual opportunities for people to volunteer with?
Always reach out to us. We've started walks like for suicide prevention and awareness and men's health across the United States, or runs, or just a day of sharing and coping. We did storytelling over on the East Coast, and that was really powerful. So always reach out to us. I mean, we're real people. We're here. Like we want to hear your stories. We want to hear what your ideas are. We love when somebody says, hey, I was thinking about doing this in Georgia. Awesome. How can we help you? How can we support you? We'll send out so many different things to people. Like we have a whole line of, like you were talking about, coping skills, like we have coping stickers, like, for people. We'll send those out to you and say, hey, put a little booth in your school and say, hey, these are some coping skill stickers. Put them on your water bottle, put them on your computer. So we'll help in any way because we want you to take your initiative. We're not just based in Wisconsin. We'll help you wherever you are. Some of our biggest like followers are actually international, over in Belgium and Italy, and we're like, that's awesome. That is amazing. So it just shows you that you can have connection over something that is maybe not such a comfortable talking topic. So however we can support you, we will.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And opening those doors for anyone to seek help within this organization, as well as being able to open that to so many people who want to give back and who want to provide support to others who maybe they understand their struggle, or maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to provide help. Maybe they just want to give uh, to this organization that is doing such good work. And so that is honestly such an amazing um, organization to hear about. So thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to share with us before we go?
I just think people just really need to know that, hey, just take an hour by hour, and each hour makes a day. And if you can get through that day, there's the next day. And yeah, give yourself grace, and always feel free to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. You're not alone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Barb. I don't know about y'all at home or whenever you're watching this, but I am definitely feeling inspired right now to go back and do some good for others. So thank you once again to Barb and the Center for Suicide Awareness for sitting down with us today. I had so much fun today in this conversation, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us. I hope to hear from everybody.
Absolutely. And we cannot wait to see what you and the Suicide for, or the I am so sorry, my words are all over the place today. The Center for Suicide Awareness organization do next. And for anyone who is looking for more information about the CSA, you can go to centerforsuicideawareness.org, or you can find them on Instagram at CNTR, the number 4, suicide. Again, that is at CNTR, the number 4, suicide. And remember, even though today may not look like it, there is always hope for a better tomorrow, and today is always a good day to show kindness to someone else as well as yourself. That is very important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. So to everyone at home, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to bring your folding chairs back for our next conversation with Kelsey. Once again, my name is Kelsey Niet, and this has been Conversations with Kelsey for Our Common Good. Thank y'all so much, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.